Welcome to New Life Devotions, leaning into encouragement and taking our next steps in following Jesus. Today we continue in a survey of Romans.
When I was in college during the summers, I loved to come back home and be on my parents' boat. A friend of mine would often go out, we'd go wakeboarding just before the sun went down because it's when the water is the absolute calmest. One of those nights we were finishing up wakeboarding, and as we jumped back into the boat, I went to start the boat and I realized nothing. It didn't start. The boat was dead. Something had broken, something was wrong with it, and so we did what only two 19-year-olds would do. We decided the only way to get this thing home is to jump in the water and to swim it back to the dock. We had a rope, we were swimming under the stars. It was tough. But after about 30 to 45 minutes, we had almost had enough and we were nowhere near our destination. We were tired, so I jumped back in, I called my dad and I said, "Dad, here's the situation, what should I do?" And he said, "Make sure that you check everything that could possibly be wrong before and find out what the issue is." Here's what I did. I looked around and I realized quickly the boat was not in neutral. It was still in drive, which means I couldn't even start it if I wanted to. I put the boat in neutral and wouldn't you know it, it fired right up. Now we were excited and a little bit embarrassed, but here's what we did. We drove home all the way back to the dock. It was a completely different experience. The boat was dead and now it was back to life. We weren't carrying a heavy burden of trying to swim or trying to literally have this thing on our back all the way to the dock. It's like that burden had been lifted. Paul writes about a similar experience for followers of Jesus. He writes about it in Romans chapter 7, verse 6. He talks about a new way to live. A way that is no longer buried or carrying a heavy weight, but a way that is alive in the Spirit and not burdened by the law. Here's what he writes. It's Romans chapter 7, verse 6. He says, "But now we've been released from the law, for we died to it and we're no longer captive to its power. Now we can serve God, not in the old way of obeying the letter of the law, but in the new way of living by the Spirit." You see that verse in verse number 6, it opens up with that word "but," indicating that there was an old way and now there's actually a new way. And that new way is life by the Spirit. The old way was life by the law, and life by the law actually led to death. And not only that, it led to a life that felt like it was weighted down by the weight of the law, by having to follow all the rules, all the regulations, and yet it didn't lead to life. All it led to was death. And then Paul says there's a new way to live, a better way that leads to life, and that is life by the Spirit. And life by the Spirit, guess what it leads to? More life. Sometimes I find myself getting weighed down by trying to do it the way that I want to do it. By trying to do it by carrying the law and keeping everything that's right and making sure I'm checking all the boxes. And that leads me to that same feeling I felt when I was literally trying to carry a boat on my back. The way that we're supposed to live is in step with the Spirit. And when we surrender to the Spirit, it's like turning that key on and we start to live by the Spirit. And it leads us to the destination we're ultimately trying to get to, which is life and life to the full. My encouragement today is, where do you need to take the weight off your back and simply turn on the key and live life by the Spirit? Because it's the life that God intended us to live. Maybe you'll notice a relationship, maybe a habit, maybe a situation where it's feeling heavy, and you've just got to lay that down, and that will only lead to death, and pick up what leads to life, which is life by the Spirit. It was Paul's prayer for the church, and I think it's God's prayer for our life. So today, I hope that you would lay down that heavy burden and that you would live life by the Spirit. Let's live that free life today. Have a great day on the mission with Jesus.